Imagine for a second you own a massive supermarket, just packed with thousands of different products. But for 50 years, the only thing you ever sell are wooden planks that you make from the store shelves. You ignore all the food, the drinks, all the valuable stuff, everything. Sounds completely insane, right? Well, believe it or not, for about half a century, this was pretty much how Indonesia managed its incredibly vast and rich forests. So let's get into it. Take a look at this number, 0.06%. I mean, that's practically a rounding error. That is the forestry sector's tiny, almost invisible contribution to Indonesia's entire GDP. Now get this, forests cover nearly 2/3 of the country's land. The gap between that immense resource and the tiny economic return, it's just staggering. And hey, you don't have to take my word for it. When Indonesia's own Minister of Finance, Sri Mulyani, was asked about the money coming in from the forestry sector, her assessment was, well, it was brutally honest. Just one word, nothing. That single word says everything about the failure of the old way of doing things. So what went so wrong? Let's really dig into why this old model, which focused only on one thing, timber, turned out to be such a spectacular disaster. We're talking about a system that didn't just underperform, it actively led to massive deforestation, huge social conflicts, and left an incredible amount of economic potential just sitting there, completely ignored. This slide really just lays it all bare. Look at those numbers. The old timber-focused model generated about 400 rupiah per square meter a year. Okay, but the potential value, if you actually use the whole forest, is closer to 48,000. That's not just a little better, that's a 100-fold increase. The old system was literally ignoring over 95% of the forest's actual value, which of course led straight to the outcomes on the right, deforestation and conflict. So, in response to this full-blown crisis, Indonesia has brought in a totally new policy. It's a game changer. It's called Multi-Usaha Kehutanan, or MUK for short, which basically means multi-forestry business. And this is not just some small tweak to the old rules. No. This is a complete top-to-bottom rethink of what a forest is and what it can be. Okay, so what is MOOC really, right? Well, here's the absolute key. It totally changes the definition of a forest. It's no longer seen as just a warehouse for logs waiting to be cut down. Instead, it's treated as a productive socio-ecological landscape, a living, breathing system where you can get value from timber, sure, but also from non-timber products like coffee or rubber, and even from environmental services like carbon capture, all at the same time. And this diagram just nails the shift in thinking. See on the left? That's the old view, forest as a standing stock, basically a pile of wood. Then it evolves into forest as an ecosystem, which recognizes there's more going on. But then, boom, on the right, you get to MOOC, a productive socio-ecological landscape. This integrates the economy, the environment, and the local communities at a much, much bigger scale. And here's where you can really see the difference it makes in practice. The contrast is just night and day. On the left, you've got the old model, logging, and that's about it. But on the right, under the MUC framework, you see this explosion of possibilities. You have logging, sure, but also non-timber products, agricultural goods, ecotourism, carbon services. Suddenly, it's a whole portfolio of businesses all happening in the same place. So what does this new way of thinking actually mean for businesses and for the people living on the ground? Well, it opens up a whole new world of opportunities that frankly just didn't exist before. We're talking about a totally new business landscape. Companies can now develop all sorts of things, from growing high-value crops like vanilla to building an ecotourism business or even selling carbon credits. And here's the best part. All of these different activities are now consolidated under one single streamlined permit, a bundle of rights that lasts for 90 years. 90! That's the kind of long-term security you need for serious investment. And this might be one of the most powerful parts of the whole thing. MOOC actually provides a real way to solve those thorny land conflicts. Instead of fighting with local communities over who owns what, companies can now form business partnerships with them, turning contested land into a business that everyone shares in. It's a genuine win-win. Okay, so the idea is fantastic, right? A total game changer. But, and you knew there was a but coming, having a brilliant idea on paper is one thing. Making it actually work in the real world, well, that's a whole other story. And MUC is running into some serious challenges. A major issue right from the get-go was that a lot of the key players, especially the companies that actually specialize in restoring ecosystems, weren't really at the table when this policy was being designed. This chart shows that over a third of them felt they weren't involved at all. The result? You get a policy that's still heavily influenced by old-school timber interests, not the new conservation and restoration ideas. Get a load of this number, somewhere between 30 and 40%. That's the estimated chunk of forest land that has currently bogged down in land and forest conflicts. It's a huge problem. And here's the kicker. The MUC policy basically tells companies, hey, you guys go solve these massive, complex, decades-old social problems on your own. It's like being asked to run a marathon while wearing a ball and chain. And if the land conflicts weren't enough, businesses then run smack into a giant wall of bureaucracy, the kind of red tape you see right here. The technical rules are still rigid and stuck in the past, designed for the old timber model. Trying to get a required environmental impact assessment? Good luck. That could take you up to 2 years. There are no real financial incentives to pursue the greener business models, and the paperwork and reporting is just overwhelming. The system is still fighting the very innovation it's supposed to be encouraging. So this brings us to the final crucial question. The MOOC policy is, without a doubt, a visionary leap forward. It is a chance to completely transform Indonesia's forests from a source of conflict and degradation into a powerhouse of sustainable wealth. But is a brilliant new blueprint enough to overcome 5 decades of inertia, bureaucracy, and conflict? That, right there, is the multi-billion-dollar question that will decide the future of Indonesia's forests.